Hi everyone, glad to see you back on the channel. Today we are diving into a story that many believed would never fully come to light. A story about accountability, persistence, and how the idea of impunity collapsed in real time. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, many of those involved in the worst atrocities believed they were untouchable. They thought the chaos of war would hide their actions, that destroyed cities would bury evidence, and that fear would silence witnesses. But what followed shocked them. Ukraine did not forget, Ukraine did not forgive, and Ukraine began hunting them down. From the earliest days of the invasion, reports of war crimes emerged at a scale Europe had not seen in decades. Civilians were executed in the streets, homes were looted and burned, people were tortured, raped, and deported. Entire towns were flattened not for military necessity, but as punishment. At first, Russian officials denied everything, claiming these were staged scenes or propaganda. But the evidence was too overwhelming. Bodies were found with hands tied. Mass graves appeared in liberated towns. Phone intercepts revealed soldiers casually discussing killings. Satellite imagery confirmed destruction matching witness accounts. The world was watching, and Ukraine was taking notes. What many Russian soldiers and officers did not understand was how modern warfare has changed accountability. This was not a war happening in the shadows. Every smartphone became a potential witness. Every drone flight recorded movements and attacks. Social media posts, intercepted calls, body cameras, and satellite data created a digital trail that could not be erased. Even when Russian units withdrew, they left behind more than ruins. They left behind evidence. Ukraine quickly realized that documenting crimes was as important as fighting on the battlefield. Special investigative units were formed almost immediately. Prosecutors, forensic experts, and intelligence officers worked alongside international partners. Crime scenes were secured as towns were liberated. Witnesses were interviewed systematically. DNA samples were collected. Shell fragments were cataloged. Every detail was logged, cross-checked, and preserved. This was not emotional revenge. This was methodical justice. At first, many war criminals believed distance meant safety. Some fled back to Russia. Others were reassigned to different fronts. Some tried to blend back into civilian life, assuming their actions would disappear into the fog of war. They underestimated Ukraine's reach and patience. Names were identified, faces were matched to units, command chains were mapped, responsibility climbed upward from individual soldiers to officers and eventually to those who gave the orders. One of the biggest shocks for those involved was how precise Ukraine's investigations became. This was not about vague accusations. This was about specific people at specific locations on specific dates. Investigators reconstructed events minute by minute. Who entered the village, who controlled the checkpoint, who ordered the detention, who pulled the trigger. This level of detail shattered the illusion that war crimes could be dismissed as accidents or chaos. Captured Russian soldiers provided further confirmation. Some confessed under questioning. Others tried to justify their actions, repeating propaganda they had been fed before the invasion. But contradictions piled up. Orders did not match reality. Statements conflicted with video evidence. Slowly, the picture became undeniable. These were not isolated incidents. They were part of a broader pattern of brutality. Ukraine's intelligence services also played a crucial role. They monitored communications, tracked movements, and identified individuals through digital footprints. Social media posts made by soldiers bragging about their actions were archived. Messages sent home describing loot or violence were preserved. Even deleted content was often recoverable. For many perpetrators, the very technology they used for entertainment and communication became the tool that exposed them. International cooperation amplified these efforts. Ukrainian investigators worked with European prosecutors, human rights organizations, and international courts. Shared databases allowed cross-border identification. Arrest warrants began to appear. Sanctions targeted named individuals. Travel became dangerous for those implicated. The world was shrinking around them. Some of the most dramatic moments came when individuals who believed they were safe were suddenly detained. In some cases, this happened during routine travel. In others, it occurred after years of hiding. Each arrest sent a clear message. Time did not protect them. Borders did not protect them. Silence did not protect them. For Ukrainian society, this pursuit of justice carried enormous emotional weight. Survivors saw that their suffering was not ignored. Families of victims saw names attached to the crimes that destroyed their lives. This was not about revenge. It was about restoring dignity and truth. In a war defined by destruction, accountability became a form of resistance. The process was not easy. Investigators faced destroyed infrastructure, traumatized witnesses, and ongoing attacks. Some crime scenes were revisited months after the fact, requiring painstaking reconstruction. Witnesses had to relive horrific experiences. Prosecutors worked under constant pressure, knowing the world was watching their standards and procedures. Despite this, Ukraine persisted. One of the most powerful aspects of this effort was its transparency. Trials were documented. Evidence was shared with international bodies. Ukraine understood that credibility mattered. Justice had to be seen as fair, lawful, and rigorous. This approach undermined Russian narratives that Ukraine was acting out of hatred or political motivation. For the perpetrators, the psychological impact was severe. The idea that they could be identified at any moment created fear and paranoia. Some stopped using phones, others avoided travel. Some attempted to change identities. But the net kept tightening. Every new arrest reinforced the reality that there would be no amnesty through time. Commanders who believed they were insulated by rank faced an especially rude awakening. The principle of command responsibility meant that giving an order was as dangerous as carrying it out. Even failure to prevent crimes could result in charges. This shifted the focus from individual brutality to systemic accountability. It challenged the culture of impunity that had existed for decades. Ukraine's pursuit of war criminals also had a broader strategic effect. It sent a message to soldiers still fighting that crimes would follow them long after the war. This deterrent effect, while not eliminating atrocities entirely, introduced a new variable into the conflict. Fear of future prosecution began to compete with fear of immediate punishment from commanders. For Russia's leadership, this was deeply uncomfortable. Official denials rang hollow as evidence accumulated. Attempts to discredit investigations failed against the volume of documentation. Each new indictment undermined claims of moral superiority or legitimacy. The narrative shifted from denial to distraction, but the facts remained. The role of ordinary Ukrainians in this process cannot be overstated. Civilians documented crimes at great personal risk. They hid phones, recorded quietly, and preserved evidence. Farmers, teachers, shopkeepers became witnesses in one of the largest war crimes investigations in modern history. Their courage ensured that crimes would not vanish into statistics. Technology continued to play a decisive role. Artificial intelligence helped analyze vast amounts of data. Facial recognition linked suspects to footage. Geolocation confirmed presence at crime scenes. This was justice operating at a scale previously unimaginable. For perpetrators, it meant there was nowhere to hide in the digital age. As cases moved forward, the international legal framework evolved as well. Discussions around special tribunals, universal jurisdiction, and expanded definitions of responsibility gained momentum. Ukraine's efforts contributed to reshaping how the world responds to large-scale war crimes. This was not just about one conflict. It was about setting a precedent. The emotional toll on investigators was immense. Day after day, they confronted evidence of cruelty that defied comprehension, yet many spoke of their work as a duty to the dead and the living. Each completed case was a small victory against despair. Each conviction was proof that justice, though slow, was possible. Some war criminals attempted to portray themselves as victims, claiming they were following orders or trapped by circumstance. Courts examined these claims carefully. In some cases, mitigating factors were considered. In others, the brutality of actions left no room for sympathy. The legal process allowed nuance without excusing horror. As time passed, the idea that the world would move on faded. Instead, attention remained fixed. New reports, new trials, and new arrests kept the issue alive. The phrase "they thought they were safe" became increasingly ironic. Safety was an illusion built on outdated assumptions about war and accountability. For Ukraine, this pursuit became part of its national identity during the war. Defending territory was essential, but defending truth was equally important. Justice became a weapon, not of destruction, but of legitimacy. It reinforced Ukraine's position as a state governed by law, even under existential threat. The long-term implications are profound. Future conflicts will be shaped by this example. Soldiers and commanders worldwide are watching. The lesson is clear. War crimes do not disappear. They accumulate, and eventually they demand answers. Even years from now, cases will continue. Evidence stored today will be re-examined tomorrow. Witnesses who were too afraid to speak may come forward later. The passage of time will not erase responsibility. If anything, it will sharpen it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel.